Hello, everyone. My name is Sahil Aggarwal, and I'm the co-founder and former president of UNICEF at Virginia Commonwealth University. I'm also a national council member for the U.S. Fund for UNICEF's Campus Initiative Program, a network of over 130 university chapters of UNICEF to educate, to advocate, and to fundraise on behalf of the world's children. I'm proud to announce that our organization, as a whole, our Campus Initiative Program, donates over $300,000 every single year to UNICEF's mission. But it's funny because 3 years ago, before I even began my journey with UNICEF at all, I was a new freshman at VCU, and I was kind of ignorant about all the issues that affect children globally, about malnutrition, the lack of clean water, armed conflicts, all of these things that lead to a daily 17,000 preventable deaths daily. And so it was kind of a mere coincidence that I ran into another student who simply asked, Sahil, do you want to start a UNICEF chapter here at VCU? And my answer was, why not? And it's funny because sometimes we're in the right place at the right time. Because 3 years later, as I applied to medical school to begin the next chapter of my career, I know that my passion for medicine now stems from a desire to eradicate preventable child deaths globally. And it's these relationships that I established through the U.S. Fund for UNICEF that have led my colleague, Hassan Ahmad, who's sitting here right now as well, and I to co-found a nonprofit organization, Pendulum Global, to empower adolescents made vulnerable by HIV and AIDS in Africa. An organization that stems from our belief that you, college students, have the ability to make and catalyze change. So it is an honor for me to announce our next honorary for this evening, a person who, as I'm sure is the case for many of you tonight, has inspired us to begin this organization. Prior to joining the U.S. Fund for UNICEF, she's dedicated 27 years to both nonprofit work and educational activities, serving as the Chief Operating Officer and Senior Associate National Director of the Anti-Defamation League. In addition to serving on several nonprofit boards, she has been recognized as one of the top 25 moms we love by Working Mother magazine, and recently received the Inspiration Award from the United Nations Association of Young Professionals. You may even remember her latest book, I Believe in Zero, Learning from the World's Children, in which she provides several accounts of her experiences in the field. And by the way, that book is available outside, and she's going to be signing afterwards as well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is my greatest honor and pleasure to present the Global Generation Award to the U.S. Fund for UNICEF President and CEO, Ms. Caryl Stern.
You have to take a picture. So last night, I had the privilege to talk to the UNICEF Campus Summit yesterday, and and I started by embarrassing my son, so I promised I wouldn't do that tonight. So James, you're safe. And but I do want to say to my fellow honorees, when Sam first asked me if I would be willing to come tonight and speak, and then he said, and we'd like to give you an award, I had no idea of the company I would be in. I'm awed to have shared this stage with you, and I thank all of you for the work that you're doing. It's truly remarkable, and it's been a pleasure to listen to all of you, really. So, here it is. I got a clicker, see? So let me start. Sam asked us to talk a little bit about what inspires us. Where did we get our inspiration from? And for me, I have a picture that stays in my mind with absolutely everything that I do. It is a picture of a little girl, and she's standing on a dock with a little boy. The little girl is 6, the little boy is 4. They're getting ready to board a ship. They're bound for a country that does not speak the language that they speak. It's a place that neither of them can even find on a map because the little girl has only just started school and the little boy not yet. They've only learned 24 hours before that they would be traveling, and they're traveling with neither their mother nor their father, but a woman whose last name they know and whose first name they will never know. The year is 1939. The little girl in the picture is my mom, the little boy, her brother. Their parents have sold almost everything they've owned and begged a friend to bring them to the United States to avoid the horrors of the Nazis. A woman brought them here. She deposited them in New York City, where they were raised in an orphanage on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And my mom inspires me because she thanks God every day for that woman who she never saw again. And she taught us my entire life that one person really can make a difference. And I know I stand here because one woman cared enough to bring 2 children across an ocean. But there was another story that was part of my childhood, and it is the story of my grandfather who boarded this ship on the bottom. It's called the SS St. Louis, often referred to as the Voyage of the Damned. Over 1,000 passengers boarded that ship. They too sold everything they owned to buy passage. It was bound for Cuba. My grandfather was going there. He was going to start a new life and send for his children in the United States and begin again. When that ship landed in the harbor, it was not allowed to dock. They learned the documents they paid so dearly for were fraudulent, and it sat in a harbor for 40 days while the world debated its fate. And so my grandfather, who was on that ship, was one of very few who ultimately lived because the world sent that ship back to Europe, where most perished at the hands of the Nazis. So my grandfather taught me a lesson as well. He taught me what happens when the world turns its back, when nobody gives a damn. And so it's kind of not surprising that I end up as the CEO of the U.S. Fund for UNICEF. My siblings and I don't think we really had any choice in life as to what we would do. My mother had us marching at every rally. She had us writing letters to our congressmen as soon as we could write. And she taught us very early on, if you weren't part of the solution, you were part of the problem. And I know when I spoke with her last night and I told her about the UNICEF summit yesterday, about where I was coming tonight, she was so awed by all of you. And so the other inspiration for me is all of you. Truly, I cannot even begin to tell you what it means to all of us who are sitting here being honored tonight to see the energy and the passion in this room, because it's just remarkable. So I get the privilege to be part of the UNICEF world, the organization responsible for helping to save the lives of more children than any other organization ever has. 60+ years of leadership, making sure that every child gets access to a childhood, hoping and striving to give a child their dignity, their right, their survival, and the ability to thrive, and doing whatever it takes in over 190 countries and territories to make that possible. But as I shared with the UNICEF clubs last night, so forgive me for repeating a little bit, UNICEF leads in times of crisis, and right now we are in crisis. UNICEF responds to 250 emergencies a year on average, and this year, as I explained last night, the UN rates emergencies. There are 5 of the highest level emergencies right now. Usually there is 1 or 2. Tonight, as we sit here and enjoy the beauty of Lynn University, there are 5 level 3 emergencies. The Central African Republic, South Sudan, Syria, Iraq, and we're still cleaning up the Philippines. And then there's Gaza, and then there's Ebola. Ebola, I think, speaks to all of us. This picture carried in the New York Times on top of the fold brought tears to my eyes in an airport in Rome, and I shared this last night, forgive me for repeating, but this is taken in the McKinney Hospital in Sierra Leone. I visited the McKinney Hospital in 2007 on a campaign to eliminate the disease, of tetanus. And I was struck in that hospital by what it didn't have. and it was the first time that I ever had to watch a child die. I sat in a hospital in a very small corner of a room that was curtained off with a 19-year-old mom, and I held her hand, and we watched her baby die. And that baby died for want of something that cost less than $5, something that would have been readily available to that child if that child was in my home. And I sat there and I thought, how did I reach the age of 50 at that time? Having not really stopped and thought about all of the things I take for granted and all of the things I thought I didn't take for granted. And I came back to the United States and I said to my staff, it is not okay that 17,000 children, and at that time it was 26,000, but 17,000 children die every single day, all under the age of 5, all of causes we could prevent, but we're just not getting the job done. 17,000 yesterday, 17,000 today, 17,000 tomorrow. And when you look into the eyes of a mom who has just lost a baby to something as senseless as tetanus, you know that you can't stop until that number is 0. And so we coined a phrase. Thank you. So we coined a campaign called I Believe in Zero, that we will not stop until that number is 0. And so I wrote a book. And as I said last night, don't wait for the movie, please buy the book. Especially because all of the proceeds do go to UNICEF. And I also said last night, so I'll say it again, I do want Glenn Close to play me if they do the movie. So a letter writing campaign would be very helpful right now. But anyway, I wrote a book. I end the book with a story I told last night about sharing an apple with a woman in the desert I stumbled upon who was starving, and how little that apple meant to me, and how it meant everything to her. And I challenged the UNICEF students last night to find that apple in their backpacks. Tonight I want to end with a different story. This is a little boy that I met in Jordan. I spent some time in the Zatari refugee camp this past year, and whenever I go to the field, there are always kids who want to hold your hand. You know, we walk around and they hold your hand, and it's really fun, and the best part of my job is I get to play with kids all day, and I actually get paid for it. So I'm in the Zatari camp. It's no different. There are a bunch of kids holding your legs, holding your hand, but there's also always a kid who walks behind you, and it's the kid that when you turn around looks down, won't talk to you, but stays with you all day long. And it's happened in every country and every field visit I've ever done, and this was the little boy who followed me that day. And behind him, and I figure him to be about 4, behind him was, I believe, his sister, and she was probably about 11 or 12, and she was carrying a baby on her hip all day, so I'm assuming that was another sibling. And we started our day in the Zatari camp at about 4:45 in the morning, and we went all day. And at about 4:30 in the afternoon, we realized that we hadn't eaten all day. And so I knew this little boy hadn't eaten all day because he'd been with us all day long. When you look at what he's wearing, I want to tell you that it was winter, and there was snow, and there were children. He had more clothes than most, walking around, no shoes in the snow. And this child hadn't eaten all day, and that told me that he probably didn't eat most days because he hadn't complained about the fact that he hadn't eaten all day. And at one point in our tour of the Zatari camp, we had spent some time in a tent that was for lactating moms. And they showed us the biscuits, nutrition biscuits that they give to the moms so they can keep their nutrition levels up so they can breastfeed their children. And they gave us one. And in all honesty, I'm on this carb-free diet, so I didn't eat my biscuit. So I had my biscuit in my pocket, and we realized that this little child hadn't eaten, so I gave this child the biscuit. And James, forgive me for what I'm about to say, but I have 3 sons, and I know if they hadn't eaten all day, and I gave one of them a cookie, the first thing they'd do is hide in the corner so their brothers didn't see it, so they could gobble the whole thing down. This child, 4 years old, I don't know when he last ate. And I gave him the biscuit, and the first thing he did, broke it in half, and he gave half to the baby. And I stood there and I cried, and I'm trying really hard to tell you the story without crying tonight. So my message to you, if that child could share his biscuit, so can you. You're here tonight because you know that. Thank you. I am really honored to be honored, but I am most honored by all of you. Thank you very much.